So today is a special lecture on the build-up for Gaura Purnima. So today is the first of the 6 lectures that we are going to have, and the session is humbly dedicated to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the worldwide Hare Krishna movement. Srila Prabhupada ki. So let us start with the invocation prayer. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
So the translation of this is: Glory to Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda, glory to Advaita Chandra, and glory to all the devotees of Sri Gaura, Lord Chaitanya. It's a wonderful opportunity that we are coming together to discuss about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose glories are unlimited, and 6 lectures is not enough. But at least the 6 lectures will help us deepen our relationship with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, will help us prepare our consciousness for this wonderful festival called Gaura Purnima. And it also will make a lot of sense when we stand before the Lord and look at Him, how, what is His position, how merciful this Lord is, this incarnation is. We will get a glimpse in this 6 days, on the 6 lectures, or this 3 days, the 6 lectures that we are having. So let me start with this question: who's Lord Chaitanya? Right? You have any idea who's Lord Chaitanya? Very nice.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is from who started following the Gaudiya Vaishnav mission.
Mm-hmm.
He is the one who actually triggered the mission to spread the Krishna's name all over the world.
Okay.
It was right from 14th century, I believe.
14th century?
14th century.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. All are correct things that you just mentioned. Often people don't know who Lord Chaitanya is and what is his reason for descent, why did he appear in this material world, and what did he do. So, when we are going to talk about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his instructions and his pastimes, it is also important, it is at least important to know who Lord Chaitanya is and what is his unique position. And to understand this, I'll just take a little time to explain who Lord Chaitanya is, and then from there we will move and see how Lord Chaitanya is so important in life. Interestingly, we live in this Kali Yuga, whereas the Kali Yuga, the age progresses, people get more and more atheistic. The belief in the existence of Lord and the fact that we have an eternal relationship with Him vanishes from the heart. People's heart become deserted. There is only, the heart is filled with only desires for sense gratification, and the desire for sense gratification is so intense and so high that people don't realize what is their real goal in life. What is the goal of life, and how much of suffering they are undergoing in this material world without really knowing the real knowledge, the real understanding of who they are. So the Lord time and again comes, descends in this material world, sends his pure devotees, leaves behind his instructions, so that conditioned souls like us who are forgetful of our constitutional position, who are struggling in this material world, realize our true position and perfect our life and can go back to him. Of all the various incarnations of the Lord that come time and again, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has a very unique position in terms of his causeless mercy that he bestows on conditioned living entities. So, to understand this, let's take a little bit of who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, first one verse that we will chant. This is the first verse from Chaitanya Bhagavat, and then we will go more details of who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. So you can repeat after me. Ajanulambita bhujo kanakavadhato Sankirtanaikapitaro Kamalayatakṣo Visvambharo Dijavaro Yugadharmapalo Vande Jagata Priyakaro Karunavataro Vande Jagata Priyakaro Karunavataro Vande Jagata Priyakaro Karunavataro. This verse talks about the two transcendental personalities who are standing here and some of the characteristics of them. Ajanu lambita bhujo kanakabadhato. Ajanu lambita bhujo. If a person is standing and his hands extend beyond his knees, then he is considered to be a Mahapurush. We can see in our life it's not an ordinary thing. It's if you see someone like that, for sure you know that he has some extraordinary characteristics. Ajanu lambita bhujo kanakabadhato. So both these transcendental personalities, when they come together, their hands extend, their huge, very long hands extend beyond their knees. Kanakabadhato, and their bodily colors is like molten gold. Kanakavadhato. Ajanu lambita bhujo kanakavadhato sankirtanaika pitaro yugadharma sankirtanaika pitaro kamalaya. They are the father of Sankirtan. Sankirtanaika pitaro kamalaya taksho, and their eyes are like lotus petals. Ajanu lambita bhujo kanakavadhato sankirtanaika pitaro kamalaya taksho visvambharo dijabharo Yugadharma Palo, Visvambharo, they are the maintainer of the entire material world. They are the maintainer of all the living entities. They are the best of the Brahmanas, Dvijavaro, Yugadharma Palo, and they came to establish this Yugadharma and to worship this Yugadharma Palo. Vande Jagata Priyakaro Karunavataro. Vande Jagata Priyakaro. They are the most lovable. One day I worship, I bow down before this most lovable, most merciful incarnation of the Lord, Karunavataro. This is written by Vrindavan Das Thakur in his famous Chaitanya Bhagavat in the first verse. And that is considered to be that verse is considered to be the Paribhasa Sutra of Chaitanya Bhagavat. Now, if we really have to understand who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, like he mentioned in the 14th century, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, but he is considered to be the golden avatara. The golden avatara because his color was like molten gold, right? Very bright, very beautiful color Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had. But the real contribution of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if somebody has to summarize, okay, who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in one line, then probably the apt line for him will be highest to the lowest. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's biggest contribution is he personally comes down, he descends to this material world in this most difficult times of our living called Kali Yuga, where people have very less faith in taking to any spiritual practices. And he comes to this most abominable place called this material world, and he distributes something which is the highest. He comes from the highest abode to this lowest abode. He brings the highest gift to the lowest people who do not deserve, who do not have any qualification to get that. And he does it out of his sheer compassion, karuna. So if somebody has to summarize, then the easiest way to summarize Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is highest to the lowest. I've heard one Vaishnava from other sampradaya comment about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he had visited our temple in ISKCON Bangalore, saying that it is very unique when you find that the devotee of the Lord is shedding tears in separation or in realization that how difficult this life is. Not so uncommon. You'll find in every tradition, in every religion, people when they suffer, they go through different difficulties and miseries, they go before the Lord and they ask for strength. They ask for resilience. They ask for how they can get over those miseries that those are inflicted on them. They shed tears. That is a great thing. At least it's not very uncommon, but still it's a good thing. Even more unique than that is if you see the Lord shedding tears for the devotees. When the Lord sees from his abode that this devotee is executing devotional service very nicely, he is trying despite all odds, despite all the problems, despite all the lack of encouragement, and still he is engaged in devotional service, the Lord sheds tears. Oh my God, so nice this devotee is. But that Vaishnava Acharya commented, even more wonderful than this is, if the Lord himself appears as a devotee to experience the feeling of intense devotion and sheds tears for the Lord himself. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is exhibiting. When Krishna left 5,000 years back, Krishna Sudhama upagate dharma jnanadhivi saha kalo nashta drishamesa puranarko adhunodita. 5,000 years back when Krishna left, he left behind the instruction in the form of Bhagavad Gita. And the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita was Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja. He put a condition there. You give up all kinds of religion, surrender to me. Only if you surrender, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshaisyami Ma Sucha. I will protect you from all kinds of sinful reactions, don't fear. That was Krishna's assurance. But when Krishna left, there was a decline of religion, and Krishna from the Goloka Vrindavan abode, he saw that people are still suffering. So he decided to come down one more time in this Kali Yuga, and this time not as Krishna, because if he comes as Krishna and he says people are anyway not taking it seriously, he came as a devotee to execute, to demonstrate in his own life how to practice devotional life, how to lead this. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. That's why he is called a Channa Avatara. Channa means who's covered. Nobody can know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God himself. Then how do we accept, or how do we know this? We can see from the pages of the scriptures, from the conclusions of the acharyas, that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a bona fide incarnation, because we are living in a society where our faith is so komala, so tender, and the faith also gets plied by so many different things. We hear so many things. There's a new incarnation who's coming in some other place, and people follow. And when there is a large mass following, often our faith also gets drawn towards that. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a bona fide incarnation of the Lord. The Lord himself personally comes to demonstrate, to show, to exhibit how to practice this devotional life. It's a great example of, because the Lord himself, if he comes as a devotee, he's an ideal devotee. And his life is a great lesson for all of us to see how we can practice and how we can improve our devotional life. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's contribution, if you see, the first one that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did was, there was a huge social impact when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. As what is your name? Amog. Amol. Amol mentioned that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in 14th century, 1486. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, and the day was February 18th. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. By appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by his work, by his propagation of this Krishna consciousness, there was a huge social impact. What kind of a social impact? The first thing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did was he removed or abolished completely this caste system. Earlier, in the name of religion, it used to be the monopoly of the Brahmanas, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and opened the floodgate and allowed anyone and everyone to come and participate in this wonderful Sankirtan. So there was a huge social impact by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's presence. But is there only social impact that happened because of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's presence? No, there was a huge political impact as well. Much before Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King started this civil disobedience, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the first person to start this civil disobedience. Because of his huge strength and followers, even the Muslim ruler got scared and agreed to cooperate with Sankirtan, which continues even till today. It's a huge political impact by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's presence. But is there only social impact and political impact? Is that what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did? Well, no, there was a huge theological impact also by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. What is the theological impact? What is the philosophy that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu propagated? The philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is called Achintya Bheda Bheda. Achintya Bheda Abheda. Simultaneously one and different. It's a huge contribution because before this, there were three other Vaishnava Acharyas, qualified oneness by Ramanujacharya. This is called Vishishta Dvaita. Dvaita by Madhvacharya. Then there is Nimbarkacharya and Pushtimarga. They had their own philosophy, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the essence from these four sampradayas and presented this wonderful philosophy called Achintya Bheda Bhed. But is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's impact only limited to social, political and theological? No, the biggest contribution of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the spiritual impact. What Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did and what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was experiencing is something called Krishna Prema, or the love of Godhead, Prema. In his own life, he was actually a reservoir of, because he came in the form of Radharani, to experience the separation that Radharani used to experience for Krishna, to experience that mood, to experience that he came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he himself was having all these outpours of Krishna love, the love of Godhead, Krishna Prem. He demonstrated this in his life. He not only demonstrated, he instructed this to his disciples. And the disciples, like the primary disciples of his, are the 6 Goswamis who documented this in the form of wonderful literature like Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, so many such wonderful literatures. It was not only demonstrated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and documented by his disciples, it was later on distributed by disciples like Srinivasa Acharya, Narottam Das Thakur, and that is how we are so fortunate that we are having access to this literature, this philosophy, and thanks to Srila Prabhupada who has put it in English language, which is easily understandable by people like us. Otherwise, to read and understand Sanskrit is very difficult. Often what happens is, in our life, even though we have been introduced to Krishna consciousness, we lose the value of Krishna consciousness. We really don't value it so much because in our life we think, what is the big deal? I'm chanting Hare Krishna mantra, it is like another temple. But the importance, the significance of chanting Hare Krishna is so nicely brought out by our acharyas, by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, and it is given to us in so easily, like everything is removed and it is given in a plate, in a platter. We sometimes tend to forget the value of this thing that is given to us. Imagine if there is a beggar who is sitting in a street and he has never seen in his life something like a gold brick or something. And a very rich man who's passing by, looking at the plight of this beggar, puts a golden brick. If he is really not aware what gold is or what is the value of that, he may just throw it, or he may use it as a paperweight, he may do something. Something similar to that happens to us, conditioned living entities in this material world who are going through this repeated birth and death. We have no idea how by the contribution and mercy of so many acharyas, how by the mercy of the Supreme Lord himself who appears as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we get this formula which is so easily given to us. We don't value it. I want to give you a very nice, there is a nice story in Mahabharat of one person. His name is, it's an interesting name. I'm not able to recollect his name now. It's called, okay, I'll tell you the story. If anybody else knows the name, you can search, you can find out his name. It's like, this person was a grihastha. His name was, comes in the story of Durvasa Muni. इसका नाम याद रखना बहुत जरूरी है. All of you know about Durvasa Rishi, right? Durvasa Rishi is known for his anger and for giving curse pretty easily. So this Durvasa Rishi, one day he visited one of the grihasthas. His name was, not able to get his name. If you search for Durvasa Rishi charity Mahabharata story, maybe you will find. So he visits this person, forget his name if I'm not able to get right now, I'll tell you some. I heard this story from Jai Chaitanya Prabhu in this recent trip to Mexico City. Prabhu was telling this story, very interesting story. And I saw that it was there in one of the blogs. I'm not able to remember the person's name. But the person was very austere, very, very austere, and he used to give a lot of charity. So in the Vedic scriptures, it is mentioned that if a person is in Grihastha ashram, then first of all, somebody whose ashram itself is a very big state. If somebody is married and he does not know about the religious principles or the principles of dharma and is engaging in all kinds of whatever sinful activities, if you read the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where the description of 28 hells are there, it is very, very scary. Sometimes people who do not know this, the repercussions of the actions that they are doing, they may not be knowing that even if somebody is leading a life which is not regulated as per the Vedic scriptures, they go and do party, they do all these kind of things, they are meant to suffer in a hell. There is a hell which is designated for people who are just whiling away their time in just useless sense gratification business. That is a hell. Unfortunately, people don't know, and they go on doing this, but they suffer. But assuming that someone is aware of it, that there are some challenges, there are some problems I should not be doing, I'm in the Grihastha ashram, I should take care of this Grihastha ashram, assuming that he's aware of this. One of the most important things that a Grihastha has to do, if he has to achieve God realization, then he has to serve and do charity to the sages, the saintly persons. And how should the charity be done? The charity should be done without grudge. You can't do in a grudging manner. The moment you do it in a grudging manner, whatever charity you have done, that also the punya will go away. So there was this person, this person, he was married and he was very austere. He used to eat twice. In the whole month, he will be eating twice. Once in Amavasya and the other one in the Purnima. So once in 15 days he will eat, and he will collect some grains from some, without harming something he will collect, and with that grains they will cook, and he had children, he had wife, and they will all eat. Now to test this person, once Durvasa Muni appeared. And Durvasa Muni, when he appeared there, seeing Durvasa Muni present, this is the culture that the Vedic culture, people used to have, where, if a sage visits their house, they have to take care of that sage very nicely. They have to, give him food, offer him, and then if anything remains, that they will use it for themselves. So this person, whatever little grain that he had collected to eat on a Purnima day, he had to cook, and Durvasa Muni took everything, and he left. So imagine, this is a small, poor family which has got 4 members, husband, wife, and 2 children, and they are eating once in 15 days, and that was taken away by Durvasa Muni. But he was very happy giving this charity. And then Durvasa Muni doesn't get satisfied with something very easily available. So Durvasa Muni visits again on Amavasya day, and again the same thing happens. Whatever they had cooked, they had prepared, they had given it to Durvasa Muni. So like this continued for 6 times. For 6 continuous months, they were not eating anything. They have become completely anorexic. They've completely become emancipated. Somebody has chat and put. Mudgala, correct. Who's that? Is right. His name is Mudgala. So it's difficult to remember that name, but yeah, his name is Mudgala. And like that, it continued for 6 months. So the point I'm trying to say is, for a Grihastha to achieve God realization is not easy. And when something is given so easily, people don't value it. So by seeing his charity, by seeing his sincerity, by seeing that he is doing it without any grudge, Durvasa Muni offered him a benediction, saying that, oh, you are doing so nicely. Actually, this human life is meant for this. It is meant for God realization. It is not meant for anything else. And you are doing so much severe austerities. I am very pleased with you. I am ready to give you a benediction. So he said, what kind of benediction? No, you will be elevated to a higher planet. And lo and behold, there was a Vimana, there was a flight which was there for him to alight and go to a higher planet. But before he alights the Vimana, this Mudgala, he asked the person who had come in the flight as to where this is going to take me. The person said, you will go to a place where there is nice avenues for sense enjoyment. There will be nice food available. As much as you want to eat, you can eat. As many varieties of food you want, it will be available. You want to enjoy your life, there will be higher source of enjoyment available. There will be a lot of women dancing to different nice musical tunes. There will be nice somaras, and you can enjoy. Life can go on very nicely. But Mudgala was not someone who was easily supposed to get carried away. In our life, when little change happens, when today snow comes, tomorrow rain comes, day after tomorrow something else comes, we take this as an excuse for not doing our devotional service. Today snow is there, Prabhu, I can't come. Which one we are compromising in our life? We are compromising the most important thing in our life without knowing the repercussion of it. But look at the position of Mudgala. He did severe austerity. He could please Durvasa Muni. He got the benediction, but when he heard that, he rejected that, saying that I don't want. Why he rejected? Because as Bhagavad Gita says, Kshine punye martya lokam vishanti. Kshine punye. You may go and enjoy there. It is mentioned, if you go to heavenly planet, they give you a garland. And the garland is a very fresh one, like I'm wearing. But the garland cannot remain fresh all the time, right? It will become dry. The flowers will, lose its sign and color and fragrance. So when the flower becomes dry, that is the Kshine Punya Martya Lokam Vishanti. You will come down again to this material world. So we live in a precarious place. We live in a situation where, we go through the sufferings. But the covering of Maya, the covering of external energy of the Lord is so strong, it puts us in forgetfulness. And the cause of our miseries in this material world is ignorance, because we are not having the proper spiritual knowledge. We go through this stress, we go through these difficulties, anxieties, we go through these problems of birth, death, old age, and disease. Yet we are not careful about how to come out of this. So, when something is so easily given by someone, we often lose the value. Like Prabhupada, what is the big deal, people say? He came from India to West, started this movement. Okay, he had thousands of followers. He established 108 temples. Big deal, people say. It is a big deal. It is actually a big, big deal. Why? Because he was one of the disciples who had firm faith in the words of his spiritual master. He took all the hardships, the pain. There was no need for him to come from Vrindavan to this place which is inhabited by mlechas, but he came and he delivered. Like the example that is given often, Vasco da Gama is the one who discovered India. So after he discovered, he said, what is the big deal? Anybody could have come. But phalena parichete. Did anybody come? Did anybody do this? Actually, it is a great contribution of Srila Prabhupada. But when it is given in a platter, in a very easily available way to us, we lose the value. It is those people who don't lose value of what they have gotten. They will be careful, they will be sincere, and they will make progress. So this is what is a unique contribution of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, distributing freely Krishna Prem. We have no idea what Krishna Prem. We know about love. We know about mundane love, where actor and actress go around the tree singing some songs. That's not what love is. The love for the Lord is a genuine cry. It's a genuine feeling. Because we are His part, we have that natural love and attraction for the Lord. But we have forgotten that. And the perverted reflection of that love is available in this material world in the form of lust. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes and distributes this. That is his unique and biggest contribution, the spiritual impact. Let's move on. One of the powerful, hard-hitting statement that I find in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which often is very difficult to digest for people, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the author, says, one who does not show respect unto the merciful Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or does not worship him should be considered a demon, even if he is very much exalted in human society. Somebody who's hearing for the first time, I am come for the first time and you are telling me a demon just because I am not worshipping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? But the mood and the intention and the why is he telling this is very important to know. Does anybody know what is the Sanskrit name for demon? Asura? Anything else? Danava? Rakshasa? Rakshasa, okay. Okay, let's take Asura. Anybody knows what is the meaning of the word Asura? Huh? Who's not Sura?
Who is envious about the Lord?
Who's envious about the Lord? It's yes. Not same. Not sane. Doesn't obey the principles. Very interesting. It is important to know the definition of Asura. It is mentioned in the, if you see the definition, like the etymology of Asura from Sanskrit dictionary, it says, Asun Ramate iti. Asura. Asun Ramate iti Asura. That means who gets pleasure in sense gratification. Asun is senses. Asun Ramate is to get pleasure. Iti. Asura. That means if we look in our own lives, we are all asuras. We are indulging in sense gratification. Who firmly believes that asusu it is, not asun, asusu. Asusu ramate iti asura. So when somebody is indulging in this sense gratification business, that is, he's called a rakshasa or a asura. Why? Because this is the reason why we are stuck up, why we are bound in this material world. Lifetime after lifetime, we are getting different bodies, but we are stuck. That is what is the definition of Asura. What Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does is, when he comes, he gives this holy name which is so powerful and attractive. By taking that holy name, by following the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one can develop a higher taste. And once one develops a higher taste, he can come out of this asuric life. Otherwise, it is impossible. That is why it is mentioned someone who's not worshipping. Otherwise, it's impossible. You can go on, this sense gratification business. Nobody can be satisfied but just by gratifying the senses. It's only when one develops a higher taste that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives in the form of this holy name, by chanting this holy name. We will see this in coming classes, how this holy name acts and how it can purify our contaminated consciousness, how it can bring us to our natural state, the state that that is what is our natural, evolved, liberated state, but we have forgotten that. And we are accepting this body, living in this material world, filthy place, trying to enjoy our senses, which gives us some paltry, little material happiness. That is why this is called the demon. Very interestingly, he was mentioning about Gaudiya Vaishnava. It is important to know also who this Gaudiya Vaishnava. This is the identity which is given to us by Srila Prabhupada. We are called Gaudiya Vaishnava. But it is important to know who Gaudiya Vaishnavas are and what is our real characteristics. They talk about Sanatana Dharma, right? We don't, the word Hindu itself, Hinduism doesn't exist in Vedic literatures. Sanatana Dharma is, the people who are following Sanatana Dharma are basically the followers of the Vedas. But the important thing is they follow Bhagavad Gita. Can you tell me some people who follow the Sanatana Dharma? Who are the different kinds of people who follow Sanatana Dharma? Vaishnavas, very good, that's easy one.
It's called Aryan.
Aryan क्या होता है?
Aryan who
It's your son.
Vedic principles
Yeah, what are the divisions? What are the divisions? Like Vaishnavas, what else? Saktas, followers of Sakti. Who else? Saivites. Anybody else? Brahmavadis. Nirgunavadis maybe can be a separate classification also. Brahmavadis. That is Brahmavadis only. Charvakas are not, they are atheistic. They are not even, they are not Sanatana Dharma followers. Basically these four categories. Vaishnavas, the worshipper of Vishnu. Saktas, the worshipper of Sakti. Saivites, the worshipper of Shiva. And Brahmavadis, or the followers of impersonal Brahman. But interestingly, one common thing is they all follow Bhagavad Gita. And even though there could be differences in their opinion, but they all accept Bhagavad Gita. Next come the Vaishnavas. And Vaishnavas are the worshippers of Krishna or Vishnu, and they follow Srimad Bhagavatam. Here there is difference. All the Vaishnavas, doesn't matter whether they are Sri Sampradaya or Madhva Sampradaya or Nimbarka Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya and Kumara Sampradaya, they all follow Srimad Bhagavatam. And they're the worshippers of Krishna. Anybody knows why they follow Srimad Bhagavatam? What is the Paribhasa Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam? You know Paribhasa Sutra? The emperor verse. That is the main verse which one book will be elaborating or expounding or explaining. Anybody knows what is the Paribhasa Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam? Janmadasya is a good guess. It's not the right answer. Right answer is Ete Chamsa Kalah Pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Loke Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. Ete Chamsa Kala Pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Worshippers of Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam is a philosophy, is a book which talks about Krishna's supremacy. That is why they are following Srimad Bhagavatam. Anybody knows what is the Paribhasa Sutra of Bhagavad Gita? There are actually two verses.
Aham Sarvasya Prabhu Matta Sarvam Pravartate.
करेक्ट और रॉन्ग बाकी लोग क्या बोलते हो? Mattah Parataram Nanyat.
Okay, Matta Bhartram Nanyat Kinchidasi Dhananjaya.
No. He was telling that. That's not the Parivasa Sutra. Manmana. Manmana bhavo madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mam evaisyasi satyam te. What is the last line? Anyway, it comes twice. Pratijane priyosime. This is the Paribhasa Sutra, but Bhagavad Gita has two. And the second one, which he told Jagannath Prabhu, is the right one. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate. Anybody knows what is the Paribhasa Sutra of Nectar of Devotion? Anyabhilasita sunyam. The bhakti which is free from all contaminations. Anyabhilasita sunyam, jnana karmadi anabratam. Anukulyana krishna anusilanam bhaktiruttama. What is the Paribhasa Sutra of Brahma Samhita? Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha, Anadiradir Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam. Similarly, the Paribhasa Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam is Etechamsa Kalapam. So anybody knows what is the Paribhasa Sutra of Chaitanya Charitamrita? Yeah, that's the right one. Anarpita Charim Chirat. That verse we will see. But amongst the Vaishnavas, there is a special position or the unique position of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And why is it called Gaudiya Vaishnava? Anybody knows? Gaudadesh, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the Gaudadesh or West Bengal. So the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is called Gaudiya Vaishnavas. They are not just devotees of ISKCON, maybe even Gaudiya Math, when there are other local Vaishnavas who are in West Bengal, Orissa and parts of that. So they are all called Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And they follow something called Chaitanya Charitamrita. Very interestingly, this is the special, unique characteristics of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. They give a lot of importance to Chaitanya Charitamrita. So these are all very fundamental things, but it's important to know because I mentioned about these three scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's important to know what is the connection between these three and what is it that one has to, what are the differences or how do we know what is it? So we will see that in a moment. Before that, I wanted to tell you, do you know where is the original manuscript of Chaitanya Charitamrita? Where it is? The original handwritten manuscript of Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. In Vrindavan. Where in Vrindavan? Vrindavan is in which place in Vrindavan? Whoever tells this will get extra sweet today. मतलब हद हो जाता है. Yeah, you're right. It's in a temple. It's in Vrindavan. You can say it's in India. It's in Uttar Pradesh. They're all right. But I want to know the exact place where it is. Good try, but not the right answer. It's close to, it's close to Lohi Bajar, but not a very popular temple that we go to. Radha, Vinod, Shyam Sundar, Gokulanand. Next time you visit Vrindavan, do make it a point to visit to this temple and see this original transcript. I've seen this once. It's very nicely preserved. It's called Radha Nanda Kumar. Not a very popular temple, but they have the original manuscript of Chaitanya Charitamrita. If you don't know how valuable, how treasurable this one, we should read the life, the biography of Bhakti Vinod Thakur and see how much he struggled to find this Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it is still preserved. Let's see what is the relationship between these three literature. It's very important to know because Chaitanya Srila Prabhupada mentions that Chaitanya Charitamrita is our postgraduate study. So it is not some simple study. Chaitanya Charitamrita is postgraduate study. Bhagavad Gita is like our ABC, the foundational study. And Srimad Bhagavatam is graduate study. So what is this ABC graduate study and postgraduate study? If you see the contents of Bhagavad Gita, it's words of Krishna. These are all philosophy of Krishna consciousness, which is there in in Bhagavad Gita. Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the character and pastimes of Krishna and his devotees. Whereas Chaitanya Charitamrita is talking about the processes and the practices of devotional service. It's a height. It's like the ultimate culmination, the summit of all our devotional life. What we want to understand is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's why it is called the postgraduate study. It is actually the mind of Krishna, right? Bhagavad Gita is words of Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam is the activities of Krishna, and Chaitanya Charitamrita is mind of Krishna. Our acharyas, they have given this nice connections between these three scriptures. As we all know that Bhagavad Gita begins with this fundamental knowledge that we are not this body, we are spirit soul. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra na muhyati. The reason for our illusion, the reason for our suffering, the reason for our struggle for this material existence is because of our forgetfulness of who we are. We accept our body to be the self, and that is why we go through this struggle. Dehinosmin, it begins with that. And it ends with Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshaisyami ma sucha. The real selfish interest of each one of us, nate vidu swartha gatim hi Vishnu, is Vishnu, but we are not aware of it. In the name of so many duties, obligations, dharma, we are busy in this material world, caught up, and going through the either enjoying or suffering the reactions of the actions that we are doing. That's why Krishna is telling at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharman parityajya. Give up all this nonsense religions that you have created for yourself. Surrender unto me. But people don't surrender. But that's where Bhagavad Gita ends. And Bhagavatam begins, Dharma projita kaitavo atro paramo nirmat saranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu sivadam tapatrayon moolanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni krite kimva parerishvaraha sadhyo hridayavaruddhyate atra kritivi shushrushabhi tatshnat. Dharma projita kaitavo. Give up all this cheating religion. Dharma projita kaitavo atro. So Bhagavad Gita is ending there, Bhagavatam is starting there. Where does Bhagavatam end? Bhagavatam ends with Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Sarva Papa Pranasanam Pranama Dukkha Samamam Stam Namami Harim Param. It ends with the power of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the power of chanting the holy names of the Lord. Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Sarva Papa Pranasanam Pranama Dukkha Samamam Stam Namami Harim Param. That's where the Bhagavatam ends. And that is where Chaitanya Charitamrita begins, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Adi Lila, there is a verse which comes, Apani Acharya Prabhu, he came down to demonstrate himself by his own behavior, by his own conduct, how chanting these holy names of the Lord can purify us, can free us from all these material sinful reactions. If somebody hears those vivid graphic descriptions of different hells in the 5th canto, like it happened in the case of Parikshit, he got scared. My God, Sukadeva Goswami, what are you saying? For every single act of our ignorance which we don't know, there is a reaction which is waiting for us. Somebody who is drinking alcohol, thinking that this is so nice, then there is a hell which is there where the hot liquid is poured in his mouth. Somebody who's so enamored by lusty desires, then there is a mention of a hell where a hot woman, like a body, will be brought and one has to embrace that. Like that, there are all very, very, very graphic descriptions are given. It's very painful. Unfortunately, one may say that I don't know about it. What is the solution? That is how the Ajamila's pastime comes in the 6th canto. Talking about the power, the glories, the effect of chanting Hare Krishna mantra. That is where Chaitanya Charitamrita begins. And then finally it ends where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Japite, Japite, Karoy Pagal. I mean, if somebody goes on chanting Hare Krishna mantra, he will experience something called spiritual madness. Forget about, being detached from this material world. You will develop an intense desire, intense hankering, intense love for the Supreme Lord, which is our natural position. That can come by just sticking to this process of chanting. That's why Chaitanya Charitamrita is postgraduate study. In Chaitanya Charitamrita it is mentioned, Chaitanya Charitamrita Nitya Karapan Yaha Hoite Premananda Bhakti Tattva Gyan. If somebody is drinking Chaitanya Charitamrita Nitya Karapan, if you are drinking Chaitanya Charitamrita every day, you will not only experience Premananda, Bhakti Tattva Gyan, you will also get all the knowledge, the transcendental knowledge which is lacking in our heart. Right now we have got all the worldly knowledge, But the knowledge about ourself, the knowledge about the Supreme Lord, the knowledge of our relationship with Him is missing in the heart. Bhakti Tattva Gyan will come by just reading Chaitanya Charitamrita every day. I just wanted to give you a brief sketch of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, and then we will go further. Lord Chaitanya lived for 48 years, 1486 till 1534. Out of which, first 24 years of his life was spent as a household. I mean, not as a householder life. As a householder, staying with the parents, getting married, going to the school, learning education, going through all those things. That's the first 24 years of his life. And that is covered in the Adi Lila. And from 24 to 48, he had sannyas life. And this sannyas life can be divided into two categories. For the 6 years, he traveled to South India, traveling and preaching. That is there in Madhya Lila. And 30th year to 48th year, he spent in Jagannath Puri. That's the Antya Lila. That's the division of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Out of this Antya Lila also, 30th to 36th, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent, he had association with his intimate devotees, like Swarup Damodar, a few, very chosen few. But the remaining years, 36 to 48, or 36 to 48 is his transcendental madness, which is given in this Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is the sketch of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is wonderful literature, which is available to us because of very painstaking efforts by Srila Prabhupada to translate it in English. Otherwise, it was there in Bengali. By the way, anybody knows how many verses are there in Chaitanya Charitamrita? Jai. That's more than even Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is 12 cantos. And you're saying 96,000. How much? 9,000 is good guess. 9,600. It's actually 11,500. And out of this 11,500 verses, about 1,000 verses are from different other literatures, like Bhagavatam, from Bhagavad Gita, from other sources. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is a genius. I mean, he's so wonderful, and it is so systematic. Chaitanya Charitamrita is probably one of the most systematic books that one can read. Everything is very nicely explained. The flow of nectar is continuous, where there is no abruption, or there is no who's telling whom. Those kind of things are not there, as it is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's very, very wonderfully written. And he has picked those important verses from other literatures, and it is available in Chaitanya Charitamrita. If one has to remember the Adi Lila, Madhya Lila and Antya Lila, these are the 12 different divisions or sections which are there. Invocation, incarnation, education and transformation, renunciation, propagation, aspiration, organization, appreciation, correction, intoxication and instruction. This is how the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. If you remember this, if somebody asks you, okay, where did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meet Ramananda Rai? Where it will fall? It will be very easy if you have this flowchart in with you. This is the Adi Lila. I'll go quickly to something that I wanted to discuss finally. Now, today is the first session, and I want to just talk about one thing, and that one thing which I have been telling from the beginning. We will talk about it, but before I do that, there is a very beautiful verse which I came across, and we will chant this verse, and then we will see what is the meaning of this verse, and then we will see one pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu today. So this verse you can repeat after me. Asitagiri samam syad Kajjalam sindhu patre
Kajjalam sindhu patre
Surataruvara sakha
Surataruvara shakha
Lekhani patra murvi
Lekhani patra murvi
Likhati yadi grihitva
Likhati yadi grihitva
Sarada sarvakalam
Sharada sarvakalam
Tadapi tadaguna namisha
Tadapi tava guna namisha
Param nayati.
Param nayati.
Very interesting, very beautiful verse. It is quoted somewhere by someone. I'll tell you about that. Very interesting verse, but it's there in our Gaudiya Vaishnava, this thing. Asitagiri samam syat kajjalam sindhu patre Surataruvara sakha lekhani patra murvi Likhati yadi grihitva sarada sarvakalam Tadapi tava gunanam ishaparam nayati. Asita Giri Samam Shyat. Now in the picture, if you see, what are you seeing in the picture? Mountain. Okay, the first thing that you saw is a mountain. Mountain is actually, it's also, this is also mountain here, but it is very faint. Asita Giri Samam Shyat. Asita is black. Giri Samam Shyat. Imagine if you have ink, and the ink, quantity of ink that you have is the size of a mountain. Asita Giri Samam. That much of ink somebody has given you. How much of ink? Mountain. Asita Giri Samam Shyat. Kajjalam Sindhu Patre. And the ink pot, earlier days they used to write in ink pot. The ink pot is Sindhu Patre. You see this ocean? That much of ink pot, the size of the ocean is the ink size of the ink pot. So what is the size of ink pot? Sindhu Patre. So what is the ink available? Mountain. Asita Giri Samam Shyat Kajjalam Sindhu Patre. Sura Taruvara Sakha. Sura Taruvaru. Sura is what we just spoke about. Sura. Who's Sura? Demigods. Sura Taruvara Sakha. Sura Taru, the tree which is there in the heavenly planets, like a wish-fulfilling tree, a desired tree. Imagine that wish-fulfilling tree, that one of the tree, that the branch, the Sakha, Sura Taruvaru Sakha. You've got a branch of that which is grown in the wish-fulfilling tree in the heavenly planets, you've got a branch. So you've got the ink like the quantity of the mountain, and you've got the ink pot the size of an ocean, and you've got a branch, if you've got a pen, which is the Sakha of a Sura Taruvara. Sura Taruvara Sakha Lekhani Patra Murvi. Likhati Yadi Grihitva Sarada Sarvakalam. Who is Sarada? Saraswati. If Saraswati is writing with this Sura Taruvaru Sakha and writing Sarvakalam, she is doing it continuously. Still, Tadapi Tava Gunanamesha Param Nayati. The unlimited glories and the pastimes of the Lord, she'll not be able to fathom. She'll not be able to finish. Tadapi Tava Gunanamesha Param Nayati. So if Mother Saraswati, with all this, what is the ink? Ink is the mountain. Ink pot is the ocean. What is the pen? Sura Taruvara Sakha. And who's writing? Saraswati. Even if Saraswati is writing with all these things, she's not able to comprehend or finish the qualities of the Lord. Tadapi tava guna namisha param nayati. It's beyond even Saraswati. So who are we? Out of 11,000 verses, 11,500 verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which are unlimited glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If I have to handpick few, it's very difficult. We can't do it. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami himself gives a version of this verse in his Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says, you can repeat, Koti Yuga Pariyanta Yadi Likhaye Ganesha Ekadinera Leelara Tabu Nahi Payasesha. If Ganesha, Lord Shiva's son and the expert scribe of the demigods, tried for millions of millenniums to fully describe one day of the Lord's pastimes, he would be unable to find their limit. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antyalila. So, Koti Yuga Paryanta Yadi Likhera Ganesha. If Ganesha is writing, he is also not able to fathom this. Just one day of the Lord's pastimes, he would not be able to find their limit. So, such unlimited things are there. And that is what we are going to delve. We are just going to go into that. I'll take just one verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, very powerful verse. I thought if I have to just give an introduction in one verse about who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, there is a very beautiful verse. And Prabhupada has written a wonderful purport to that. We will read that and we will finish. But before we do that, I wanted to tell you about this wonderful material world that we are living. And I began talking about that. How this material world is compared with a deep, dark well. Grihandha Kupam. This is what is our position. Deep, dark well. I'm sure you all remember that story of Vedic literatures where it is mentioned a person who forgot his path while he was walking in the evening or something, and he entered into a forest and was being chased by a tiger. So when he was chased by a tiger, he entered, he was running and he fell down into this deep dark well. And while falling down, he was hanging from the creeper which was coming from the trees. And he was hanging upside down. He was hanging inside the deep dark well. And whatever little vision, whatever little light was there, he could see that there is a big python who was there to gulp him. And not just that, he was hanging upside down from that, hanging from the creeper, and that creeper was being nibbled by a white rat and a black rat alternately. But in the midst of all these dangers, there was a drop of honey which was falling, and this man was busy looking at the other drop when it is going to come to his mouth. This analogy is a very powerful analogy. This is a very powerful example which is given just to remind us what is our precarious position and how valuable this time which is given to us in the form of human life, which we are wasting, which we take it for granted. The tiger that is being chased, the man being chased by the tiger represents diseases which don't leave us. No matter how hard we try, these diseases, they come in some way or other. You may think that I have recovered somehow, I've gone to this hospital, I've done something, I've recovered. No. Our health deteriorates completely. The sneezing only confirms that. Actually, it's a fact. Nobody gets better as time progresses in their health. It degrades. So the diseases are constantly there in the form of the tiger. There is this python which is opening its mouth and waiting for this person to come inside, is the death. The jaws of death are always there. As sure as death, we are going to fall. And more importantly, that creeper is being nibbled by the white and black rat who represents day and night, which are going constantly. Every single day when the sun rises and sun sets, we get one day close to death. Ayur harati vaipumsan udyan astancha yanaso. Every day when the sun rises and the sun sets, we get one day close to death. But look at our precarious position, that little honey that is dripping, that we are busy and we are enamored by. Imagine if you are looking for a solution, just for a moment, if you think you are stuck in that deep dark well, and it's a very, that's why it's called deep well as well as a dark well. And if you are looking for solution from this materialistic people or people around us, they may come and look at you, look at our plight, but they'll have no solution. There is nothing that they can do. I mean, I've seen if unfortunately somebody falls down in a well, it's not easy to recover them. It's not easy. So what is the solution? Very interestingly, there's a verse which comes by Rupa Goswami in the Stavamala. This is there in Mukundamala Stotra, in one of the verses this is quoted. Very, very beautiful verse. You can repeat after me. Manasija Fani Juste. Manasija Fani Juste.
Manasija Fani Dushte.
Labdha Patosmi Dushte.
Labdha Patosmi Dushte.
Timira Gahana Rupe.
Timira Gahana Rupe.
Hanta Samsara Kupe.
Anta Samsara Kupe.
Ajita Nikhila Raksha.
Ajita Nikhila Raksha.
Hetu Muddhara Daksha.
Hetamudhara Daksha.
Upanaya Mama Haste.
Upanaya Mama Haste.
Bhakti Rajyum Namaste.
Bhakti Rajyam Namaste.
Very wonderful verse by Rupa Goswami. What a beautiful verse. Manasija Fani Juste. Labdha Patosmi Dushte. Timira Gahana Rupe. Hanta Samsara Kupe. Ajita Nikhila Raksha. Hetu Muddhara Daksha. Upanaya Mama Haste. Bhakti Rajyum Namaste. Manasija Fani Juste. Labdha Patosmi Dushte. Alas, I have fallen into the deep, dark, filthy well of samsara, in which the viper of sex desire dwells. Manasija Fani Juste. Why we are stuck here? It's because of the viper of sex desire. The viper of just enjoying our senses is so strong. We are stuck in that deep dark well. Alas, I have fallen into the deep dark filthy well of samsara, in which the viper of sex desire dwells. And he's telling, Ajita Nikhila Raksa Hetum, O invincible Lord, the rope of devotional service is the cause of universal protection and is expert at delivering the fallen souls. Please place that rope in my hand. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. In the morning when we chant this, when we do this soulful japa cards, cue cards, there is one slide which comes, I think the fourth one, the last one, where it is mentioned that this rope is given to us, But I have to hold on, I have to catch onto that rope. I can't come out of the well just because the rope is there and I'm looking. Yeah, I mean, there are two things which has to happen. The person has to hold the rope, and the person who has put that rope from outside also has to pull that person out. The person who is going to pull us out is the spiritual master. He has given this rope in the form of his instructions. I have to hold on to it strongly. If I don't hold on, I'll be still there. I mean, I can't be saved just because there is a rope which is available from this hopeless condition of this deep, dark well. If I have to come out, this is the only way. But unfortunately, we are so precarious and forgetful and complacent of our position, we don't realize what we are going through. It's a very beautiful verse by Rupa Goswami. But the verse that I was going to talk about today talks about the causeless mercy of Chaitanya, and how this causeless mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives one freedom from all miseries and cleanses one's mind. This verse comes in the Madhya Lila, and this verse is spoken by Swarup Damodar. And the verse has got 12 times the word Daya. Not just once, 12 times. And Swarup Damodar, when he composed this verse and he put it in this thing, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw that and tore it. We've heard this many times. He tore it. But it aptly summarizes what is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood and what he does. Very beautiful verse. So this is the verse. This is in the Madhya Lila, 10th chapter, 119. Of all the verses that I could see, if I have to give an introduction of who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, and how his causeless mercy is required in our life to come out of the sufferings, to come out of what we are going through, this verse is very, very beautiful verse. There is a meter that which you can chant, but it's like our Sat Goswami Astaka meter. We'll just read this. If you want to repeat, you can repeat. Helo dhunita khedaya.
Helo dhunita khedaya.
Visadaya.
Vishadaya.
Prano milada amodaya.
Pramon Vinada Amodaya.
Samyak Shastra Vivadaya.
Samyak Shastra Vivadaya.
Rasadaya.
Rasadaya.
Chitrapiton Madaya.
Chittarpiton Madaya.
Saswad Bhakti Vinodaya.
Shashwat Bhakti Vinodaya.
Samadaya.
Samadaya.
Madhurya Maryadaya.
Madhurya Maryadaya.
Sri Chaitanya Daya Nidhe.
Sri Chaitanya Daya Nidhe.
Tava Daya Bhuyad Amonodo Daya.
Tava Doya Bhuya Amando
Amanodayat. It's a very beautiful verse, very, very beautiful verse, very powerful verse. The translation of this is, O Ocean of Mercy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let there be an awakening of your auspicious mercy, which easily drives away all kinds of material lamentation by making everything pure and blissful. Indeed, your mercy awakens transcendental bliss and covers all material pleasures. By your auspicious mercy, quarrels and disagreements arising among different scriptures are vanquished. Your auspicious mercy pours forth transcendental mellows and thus causes the heart to jubilate. Your mercy, which is full of joy, always stimulates devotional service and glorifies conjugal love of God. May transcendental bliss be awakened within my heart by your causeless mercy. To assimilate, to be able to perceive what we just read, let's see the purport of Srila Prabhupada. There are 4 paragraphs in this purport, and very, very powerful purport. Prabhupada says, this important verse, Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka, this is written by Prabodhananda Saraswati, specifically describes the Lord's causeless mercy. What is this causeless mercy? As I said, sometimes the recipient of mercy may not even know that I have been bestowed with mercy, and it's a causeless mercy. So what is this verse which is talking about the Lord's causeless mercy? Very nicely, Prabhupada explains this. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the most magnanimous personality of Godhead, distributes his causeless mercy in 3 ways to the conditioned soul. Every living entity is morose in this material world because he is always in want. That is the fundamental characteristic of a person who is in this material want. He's always looking for something. He's always in want. Even if everything is there, still something, he'll find, "Arey, ye to mere paas nahi hai. I don't have this." And he is always in want. That's why he's morose. He's sad. people didn't recognize what service I did, or something or other. Somehow, even if everything is there, somehow he'll create something that I'm lacking this thing, and that lack, that feeling of that I'm incomplete, makes a person morose. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's unique contribution is every living entity is morose in this material world because he is always in want. He undergoes a great struggle for existence and tries to minimize his miserable condition by squeezing the utmost pleasure out of this world. This is what is our position. First of all, there is a want, and for which we are morose, and then to get that want fulfilled, we have to struggle hard. He undergoes a great struggle for existence, and what does he do? Tries to minimize the miserable condition by squeezing the utmost pleasure out of this world. But the living entity is never successful in this endeavor. While in a miserable condition, a person sometimes seeks the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But this is very difficult for materialistic people to obtain. However, when one becomes Krishna conscious by the grace of the God, by the grace of the Lord, the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord expands. And in this way, a materialist may gain freedom from his miseries. Actually, his mind is cleansed by his transcendental connection with the lotus feet of the Lord. This is the mystery. Actually, somehow if a person becomes Krishna conscious, gets connected to the lotus feet of the Lord, the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord expands. And in this way, a materialist may gain freedom from his miseries. Actually, his mind is cleansed by his transcendental connection with the moment we get connected to the Lord, this transcendental connection cleanses the mind of all these impurities. At such a time, one is enlightened by the loving service of the Lord. There are many different, this is the first mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then Prabhupada is explaining, there are many different kinds of scriptures, and by reading them, one often becomes puzzled. But when one receives the mercy of the Lord, his confusion is mitigated. Not only are scriptural disparities resolved, but a kind of transcendental bliss is awakened. Many people use these scriptures for some intellectual stimulation, or they do some word juggleries. They try to find something artificially that it has to psych me up, it has to give me some kind of intellectual kick. But Prabhupada is saying it is by mercy of the Lord, this confusion is gone, and the disparities in the scriptures is resolved, and a transcendental bliss is awakened. And in this way, one is fully satisfied. The transcendental loving service of the Lord constantly engages the conditioned soul in serving the Lord's lotus feet. Through such fortunate engagement, one's transcendental love for Krishna is increased. One's position is thus completely purified, and one is filled with transcendental bliss, accompanied by the spirit soul's jubilation. Thus, the transcendental causeless mercy of Lord Krishna is manifested in the heart of the devotee. At such a time, material needs no longer exist. The third thing, the material needs now it vanishes. The lamentation that invariably accompanies material desires also vanishes. By the grace of the Lord, one is elevated to the transcendental position, and then the transcendental mellows of the spiritual world are manifested in him. One's devotional service then becomes firm, and one engages in the Lord's transcendental loving service with great determination. All this combined to fully awaken the devotee's heart with love of Krishna. And the last paragraph, in the beginning, a conditioned soul is bereft of Krishna consciousness and is always morose in his material activities. Later, by associating with a pure devotee, one becomes inquisitive to know the absolute truth. In this way, one begins to engage in the transcendental service of the Lord. Next, by the Lord's grace, all misconceptions are vanquished and the heart is cleansed of all material dirt. It is only then that the pleasure of transcendental bliss is awakened. People often ask this, kuch ho kyun nahi raha hai? Why I am not able to experience? There is a process. When somebody engages in the transcendental service of the Lord, he has to become inquisitive to inquire about the absolute truth by coming in touch with a pure devotee. Then he engages in devotional service. When he engages in devotional service, there is a mercy of the Lord which comes, the causeless mercy of the Lord. That mercy removes the misconceptions in the heart. And when the heart is cleansed of all material dirt, one can experience the pleasure of transcendental bliss is awakened. By the Lord's mercy, one is completely convinced of the value of devotional service. When one can see the pastimes of the Lord everywhere, he is firmly situated in transcendental bliss. Such a devotee is relieved of all kinds of material desires, and he preaches the glories of the Lord all over the world. These Krishna conscious activities separate him from material activities and the desire for liberation, because at every step the devotee feels himself connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although such a devotee may sometimes be involved in household life, he is untouched by material existence due to his constant engagement in devotional service. Thus, everyone is advised to take shelter of devotional service to become happy and liberated. Actually, this purport is a very powerful purport. It may look like you're talking about the same thing, devotional service here and there, but it's a very well structured, very nicely written purport explaining exactly our position, what is the need of the causeless mercy, and how this causeless mercy makes this huge change in our life. How can I become a recipient of this causeless mercy? Now, to finish our time, if you just forgot everything, just remember this one paragraph that today we are talking about the causeless mercy of the Lord, the reason for our material existence, and how the causeless mercy of the Lord makes all the difference in life. Everyone in this material world is morose. Why they are morose? Because there is a lack. They are feeling that there is something that they are missing. There is a want. And what they are doing? Because they are trying to struggle to minimize the misery by squeezing pleasure. And the result is they are unsuccessful. And they are looking for Lord's favor, which is difficult to obtain. But somehow if the person becomes Krishna conscious by Lord's grace, he becomes free from misery. And the mind gets cleansed. And then he becomes enlightened by loving service. This is the unique contribution of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His causeless mercy is available. Unfortunately, people like us who are so callous, who are so much deeply absorbed in this business of sense gratification, we don't realize what is really good for us. But hopefully, not that I'm saying I'm free from all these things, but this is what is our position, including me. But there are these wonderful literatures which are available in the form of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and there's a wonderful contribution of Srila Prabhupada who's given it in English. If we read them, if we understand them, then we can prepare our consciousness, not just for Gaura Purnima, but for the rest of our life. We'll live life in a particular way which is suited to come out of this entangling the very cumbersome material existence and experience transcendental bliss. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments. Any question?
Krishna Prabhu, just a technical question. That verse which referred to Saraswati, the reference of that, if you could share.
That is from Shiva. Shiva talking to Parvati or something. Shiva Mahima or something it is mentioned. Okay. But it is there in the commentaries of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur on Chaitanya Charitamrita. So there was a parallel of that by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, which I spoke about Ganesha. But the point is, similar thing is there in Bhagavatam also. That verse, meek, what is that? Even if the scientists are able to count the number of sand particles in this material world, even if assuming that's impossible, but assuming that they are able to fathom how much of water is there, something like that. That's a K Mahi, Brahma's pair. But still they will not be able to find out how many the unlimited pastimes of the Lord. The pastimes of the Lord are so unlimited, and they'll not be able to fathom that. Not able to the qualities of the Lord are so unlimited they cannot fathom that. There's a verse like that in Bhagavatam. Similar verses are there everywhere. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, how does one become recipient? Although Mahaprabhu is so merciful, then but still we see that the recipient is not able to receive the mercy sufficiently.
Yeah. It's there in that purport, very nicely Prabhupada explains actually. The recipient of the mercy has to come in touch with a pure devotee. And there should be, after having come in touch with a pure devotee is not enough, because his person also has to be sincere in executing his instructions. If that happens, then there is a causeless mercy of the Lord, which he becomes a recipient of. But he may be a recipient of causeless mercy, like in the case of Jagai Madhai. Nityananda Prabhu came, and because of the presence of Nityananda Prabhu, they became the recipient of Chaitanya's mercy. But the condition that was put there was, don't do any more sinful activities. Don't do this sense gratification business anymore. And they agreed to that. Something that verse comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Baap re baap, na kare aar. I mean, ho gaya, bahut ho gaya, I'll not do anymore. But that thing, somehow people don't do it. Even if they become the recipient of the mercy by coming in touch with pure devotee, by understanding our position and the value of this, still people don't do it because they get again, that business of sense gratification continues. And when that continues, that fire also is burning inside, then the fire of devotional service will not burn. If you are unfortunate, it may be even overshadowed completely. You'll be gone. And that is one thing. There is one is this Bhogeshwarya, the desire for that which is not going in our heart, subtle desires. And the second thing is aparadhas, offenses. These two things make us deprived of receiving the mercy from Chaitanya. So we have a lot of things to look forward to. This is a limited time, but we'll also hear about the importance of chanting Hare Krishna mantra. We'll also hear some wonderful pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and some important principles of devotional service which we should be careful of, which we should practice and follow in our life. We will see that in the next classes. Thank you all for joining. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Chaitanya Charitamrita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai